Ladies and gentlemen, this broadcast is live. This is the final We the Motherhood production broadcast for the calendar year, the unprecedented, the hope to never see in 2020. But it's been a good year for advocates because a lot has come to the surface in our special education work, and we've been able to really push the envelope. So, what I'm going to ask everybody to do before we get started is go to your mobile device, go to your Facebook page, find the Citizen Ed Facebook page. Chioma is displaying great use of her mobile device. And start a watch party. Share with your networks what we're doing tonight. This is our last conversation. We have a very powerful group tonight. We don't want anyone to miss it. So let's take a minute to get ourselves all streamed up. I'm going to do it too. So we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, this broadcast use of her mobile device and start a watch party. Share with your networks what we're doing tonight. This is our conversation. Wait, you can hear me. A very powerful group tonight. We don't want anyone. All right. Start a watch party. All right, everybody good? Everybody got their watch parties going? Thumbs up? Yeah, I know you do, Mother Yolanda. I know you do. The queen of it. You got some good light there, sis. I'm liking that light, the whole thing, everything, sis. It's good. It's good. You gotta show me how you do it. I'm kind of all the pieces here. So the brother Brian James, we know each other from I don't even know where at this point, but for many, many years. And he posted a poem that he wrote that he penned to his grandson. It's your grandson, right, Brian?
Yes, that's correct.
And you penned it about him and to him. He has autism, and you wrote this wonderful poem about him, and it resonated with me when I read it because it sounded so much like what we talk about our own children and the way we view their actual beautiful nature. And so I was hoping you would read it. So I invited you. I reached out and I said, "Can you come read that poem for our final Read the Mother?" And so if you would open us up, Brother Brian, and if you want to share any backdrop about your journey with your grandson, and then go ahead and let us hear that beautiful poem.
Yes. No, my grandson Omar, I call him a genius because he is. He's just such an adorable child. And my sons, Jalil Amir and his wife, Marsal, are excellent parents. They take the time to make sure he has the education that he needs and the love that he needs. And I'm almost jealous of this baby because he's surrounded by so much love and joy. I'm not worried about his future at all. I know that we could love him through anything. I will go ahead and share the poem if you would like.
Yes, yes, yes. It was something else you said when you said love him through. You made another statement about how he was his journey. You used a different terminology. I got to look it up, but you used a different terminology that a lot of us like to use to speak about children's journeys. As just that it's a journey. It may be different from another child's journey, but it's a journey. It's a wonderful journey nonetheless. And I gotta figure out what was the exact way you spoke of it, but it was really, really beautiful the way you spoke of him loving through and different things like that. So I gotta find it so I can pin it because it was good. All right, poetry time. Chioma is a poet. I'm a poet. So we appreciate the opportunity to be graced with a poet tonight.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'll go ahead and share the poem. I believe I did say learning his way through because we're not quite sure on the spectrum where he is. So I say learning his way through. But I will go ahead and share the poem now. It's entitled Toys. He aligns his cars in straight lines and stacks his blocks by six in perfect columns. He jumps up and down with enthusiasm, for his autism speaks in action. At the moment, he prefers the color green and is reluctant to noise, so he sets his hands upon his ears and disappears to solitude, while I am left to await his return. But because I love him so, I've learned to enter a room quietly, to sit and await his attention. Just like his toys, I remain silent for his acknowledgement. He surveys me, and in time grants a smile and then a sudden warm hug, and giggles within my arms, cocks his head as if to say, "Don't worry, Grandpa, I am in control," and then runs down the hall with glee. Yes, we are all his toys. My heart burns with joy, literally burns with joy, a spectrum of emotion within, aching and hurting with happiness, with hope. I shed a tear of joy for this lovely boy, my little genius. Thank you.
Woohoo! I know when I read it just really resonated with me. I look at my son, I say, my little genius. You know, the way his mind operates is so beautiful. Did that poem? Thank you, Brian, for sharing your original work of art. Thank you. Did that poem resonate with anyone? Did that sound like a feeling you had before? Anyone?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and I love the preface, the backstory to it, like knowing the context also really deepens just the impact. And I just really appreciate you, especially we don't really, I don't really get to hear from grandfathers a lot. So that's, extra special. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That male perspective, I think we keep saying we're going to have our first father, grandfather to join us. And we keep saying we're going to get some male perspective in because, we are the motherhood. But we know that fathers have a perspective. We put money on that it might be a little bit different, but we do know that fathers have a journey too, as it relates to their perspective in raising our children. So, Brian, do you consider yourself an advocate now that you are that you have found yourself um, needing to protect your grandson along with his parents? Do you think you're an advocate now?
Oh, I've been an advocate since I was 17 and I was a father.
Right, that part.
I've raised four kids, me and my wife, of course, and put them through college. And so I have three going on four grandkids now. And I've always adored being a father. I lost my father when I was very young. So it's always been a very passionate thing for me to be the best father and husband that I could be. So I've always been an advocate for making sure that the children are raised properly, and also for women. I was raised by women, reared by women, and they were the major influencers in my life. So I am really honored to be here with you, beautiful women tonight, you intelligent women tonight, and I'm thankful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Now you're welcome to hang out with us and participate in our conversation. But you're also welcome to go have dinner, whatever it is you do on Friday night. But we would love for you to stay with us and join us in the conversation because we have a lot to talk about. This year has been the one and only 2020. At some point, the year 2020 felt like the it was you've been by request we say please stay, brother Brian, please hang out with us. We would love for you to join the we got multiple please stay, so please, if you can, ask your wife if it's all right if you stay with us for a little while. We 2020 has been by far one of the most interesting years. Last year I kept saying 2020 is my year, right? um and guess what, it has been, but wow, right? Probably the most amazing thing of 2020 for me is this moment here, Friday night, first or so of the month, we the motherhood. it has been amazing. And we have always, we know we need a network. We know we need to support one another. We know we need to grow and share resources together. So this has been an amazing opportunity, but with so much to look back on, so much to look back on. So we have our sisters. So we the Motherhood is based, no doubt, Washington D.C. all day. But we have our sisters from Maryland, Prince George's County, from Raising Ralph Incorporated, a nonprofit out of Prince George's County who is also doing the work, supporting families, raising awareness about autism and disabilities, and helping families fight. And Sister Tiffany Simon is on, and I always she's probably tired of me telling the story, but I always share that it was Tiffany that showed me the necessity of having this type of network because in the beginning, I was just lost and desolate and sad and confused and angry. And I didn't speak the language and I just didn't know what was happening. And I was just like, hey, why is this so hard? And Tiffany had been down that road and she knew she had already given me recommendations for resources, but she remembered that I was going to have this IEP meeting, and she called me, and she sort of coached me off the ledge a little bit because she already knew and suspected that I probably couldn't hold it together, and she also knew that I had to hold it together to really sit in that room and appropriately advocate for my son and represent my interests and his interests that I would need to keep it together. And she called me and she spoke positive words over me and told me that God's got it and I'm good and just to keep it together. And I cried and I got out that car and I went in that meeting and I really never looked back from there. And I've known since that moment that that's what you need, someone who gets it. And we have cried together. I always laugh about our little full moon cries. And we get it, we get it, we get it. And so there's power in the collective understanding of what it means to be a parent on this journey. So I welcome Sister Tiffany and Sister, well, not sister, Mother Tiffany, Mother Tanisha to the Motherhood. And
Thank you.
yes, and I appreciate you joining us because you give us a little bit more perspective because we know that, the interest in Maryland and Prince George's County might be a little bit different from what we are dealing with in the district public schools and district charter, public charter schools. And so, let's talk about it. 2020. What was 2020? What was the journey like in special education support, advocacy, all the T in Prince George's County? What was happening?
I'm sorry, Michelle. I can't hear anything you're saying. It's going crazy over here on my side. So I missed all the great stuff that you were saying. So I'm following on Facebook and all the other stuff. So I'm so sorry.
Whew. That's the
But
whole speech. I can't remember the thing I just said, but the
no, I
mic
can
is
follow you. It's just a delay on Facebook. So I'm following you on Facebook Live. So my reaction is slower than what you're saying it. Oh, I'm sorry.
she's right on time. But she's right on time.
Good. Well,
All
thank you
right.
for all the great things you said, and it's an honor to be here with you, ladies. I've popped in on a few of y'all sessions throughout 2020. You guys are doing great work. I saw you out there protesting. I was like, man, I got to get my stuff together. Michelle is running laps out here, and I feel like I got to keep up with you guys. But I wanted to just say that we have Tanisha here. She is the first person that I called when I found out that my son had autism, and she is the one who got me in the right direction. She was like, "You need to do X, Y, and Z. This you need to do this first. You need to do this. I got an advocate. You got to fight." And I'm all, when you first get the news, you're just, you're destroyed almost. You have to rebuild yourself back up again. I know she probably didn't understand what I was saying. I was too busy sobbing and feeling sorry for myself because this was my first son. I had no idea what I was doing as a parent. I'm hormonal and to find out that, our world has a crack in it, when you get the diagnosis, you instantly go to, I'm not going to be the soccer mom. I'm not going to have all these different things happen. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. But through going through the process that I went through, I felt like it was a grieving process. I was sad. I was angry, I was hurt, and then I had the wise me. I'm like, you have people out here that don't care about their kids and they're fine, and they do all these different things to their body and they're fine. And it was a praying mother that got me on the right path. She was like, look, you got a job to do. You have to be a parent to both of your children, and you need to dust yourself off, pray what you can't fix, and move forward. And when I did, I didn't look back. And I know that in order to keep myself from being deterred from setbacks and what I perceive to be progress, you just have to stay grounded. It's a lot of self-care. It's a lot of shaking things off. And 2020 has taught me a lot. I don't know about you guys. I have such a sense of gratitude and humbleness, not only just for the life that I have and the people that I have surrounded myself with, but with the fact of my son being autistic. He has taught me so much in this process. When everybody said distant learning is awful, he's not going to learn, he's going to be behind. But hey, I'm here to tell you, he made honor roll this year. How about we made honor roll this year? And it's all about the level of parenting you want to be. And and just it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. I know that if a teacher asks me for anything when they go back to school, I'm doing whatever they want. They're getting probably a $50 gift card to wherever they want to go, because I truly appreciate the work that they do with our children, because it's not an easy job. And you know what? There are some really great teachers out there, and then there are ones that you have to coach up and coach along as well. So my whole thing has been to question everything. I mean, they may tell you one thing, but it's up to you to do your own research. And I have to say, my biggest supporter has been Tammy. Tammy has been just great with just the milestones that she's taught me with her son Jordan, and just being that tough love, like, look, you got to do what you got to do and just suck it up and let's go get it done type thing. And I appreciate that. I mean, sometimes we all need that person in our corner that's going to be real with us and not sugarcoat it. And I'm just very thankful for all this year. And I'm not going to talk the whole time, so I'll let Tammy if she wants to say anything.
Thanks, Tiffany. They don't know that everyone calls me Tammy because I have my government name up there, but that's okay.
Tammy. I was thinking the same thing. Oh, the another lady is not only they Tammy. Okay.
Yeah, that's my nickname. That's okay. All my family calls me Tammy. That's fine. 2020 has been really busy for me because I have a 20-year-old who's actually coming out of school. So he transitions June of 2021, he'll be 21 years old. So right now I am interviewing organizations for community services. I am going after guardianship because now that Jordan is 20, any decisions that have to be made, they're going to want to talk to him. And even though he is not on that level of a 20-year-old, and even though to parents, we feel like it's common sense that, maybe a doctor or a lawyer should talk to us, they're still going to ask Jordan questions, even though he's not going to understand. And my son doesn't understand stuff like that. So I'm going after guardianship. I'm filling out so much paperwork. His school has been amazing as far as helping me out. Jordan has doors, and I don't know how old your children are, but we started this process when he was 14. So doors, and we're on the DDA wait list, and we have a resource coordinator who sends us activities, who sends me a lot of information on what I should do, how to get the ball rolling. So hopefully when he graduates in June, come July, the DDA disabilities will kick in, or we'll be ready for everything to kick in, hopefully by that time. Virtual learning, it hasn't really been too bad. Like, I know everyone probably says it's about their child. My son is the best. He is such a sweet, sweet, loving, giving child. He has no behavior issues. Like, he gives me absolutely no problems. So virtual learning for us has been really kind of like a breeze. He's doing very well. Like, his teachers are saying he's doing really good. And then I asked him, I said, Jordan, you want to go back to school or you want to stay home? And he was like, stay home, mommy. I said, you want to ride the bus and go back to the harbor school? He's like, no, stay home. So I think he's enjoying it too. And how our schedules are, I'm back to work full time. My husband is still on 1 week and off 1 week. And then Jordan has a caregiver because he's on the autism waiver. So we do have, other people helping us with the virtual learning, with, helping Jordan around the house with his chores and helping him learn how to cook. And he goes out in the community. So 2020 hasn't been too bad. I mean, we are kind of more isolated and we definitely have to keep safe, but I'm enjoying time with my family. And I want to thank you ladies for having me. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks, Tiff.
Good. You said the D word, right? Distance learning. And it's interesting to hear you say about first of all, that you say your son don't give you no problem. Amen. My house I give me a run for all my money. All
I don't know that life.
So like all over over the course of the years, and this is for anybody, or any piece. Over the course of the years, I asked myself, like I think Tiffany, you mentioned about I'm not gonna be the soccer mom, I'm not gonna be this, and I said, I kept asking the why me question, right? But I feel like for me, 2020, when I look back on it, it has answered the why me question. Because it evidently was important for me to become a part of this fight. Somehow, because even when I want to not do it anymore, because I'm like, well, you're not even participating in your own advocacy, so I'm not gonna do it anymore. And then something shows up and I get fired up. And next thing you know, or let's say I talk to Chioma, and every time I talk to Chioma, I get fired up. And so, and I get ready to go, and I realize that, it's there, it's that calling thing. And so you kind of accept your calling to be a part of a more purpose-driven mission that you didn't necessarily expect. And and I'm late bloomer, right? So it's like I get all this way in life, and this is what the mission here, at this late stage of the game. But it seems to be anybody else kind of feel like 2020 revealed their purpose as it relates to your work in this realm, like anybody who wasn't sure before 2020.
I have to say, Michelle, it's funny because when I first set out, I started with the blog, with writing about, how I felt in navigating the journey of autism. But then I was like, you know what, I can do more than this. It's, I think the next step is that I have to start my own nonprofit organization. Like I want to be able to help families just like me, because I know how I felt. And if I can help one person, my heart is full. And then I started writing a blog, and then I found out that you read my blog, and I was like, what? Are you kidding me? You read my blog? And I'm like, all right. And then the closer I got to starting to formulate things, the fear sets in. Like you self-sabotage. You start to think, well, can I really do this? Am I going to be taken away from this? Or, what is it? But 2020 has allowed me the time and space to think, to think out everything that I want to do. And if you don't put it out in existence and out there in the atmosphere for it to settle and it to resonate with yourself, and understand that you have to you have to look at your limiting beliefs that you're having about you, and start to peel that onion to address it. And I felt like all the things that I've wanted to accomplish in life that didn't pan out was because of my own self-sabotage. I let fear and other people telling me that I couldn't do something dictate that. But this is different. I'm like, this is about my child. Everybody out there who is a mother is raising a Ralph to some magnitude. They may not be on the spectrum. They may not, and they may be on the spectrum. And building a foundation and a bridge to gap from where not knowing any information to having resources readily available to you, that's detrimental. That helps with like early intervention. It helps with like the reason why I have 4 mothers on the board on my thing, because each of us have a son. That means that we're fully invested with the mission of autism, of helping others. But each of our sons are uniquely different. They're different in age. Their autism looks totally different. And I wanted to build an organization that would address that. Like I can't be, narrow-minded and just focus on one aspect of things when there's so many other people that need help in other areas. And I wanted to make sure that I had the representation to do that. And that's why Tanisha's here. I have another mom, Pat, who has a son that's 18. He just graduated high school. I have Wendy, who has a son who's the same age as Ralph, but his communication is much clearer than Ralph. He's focused, and his eye to photography is absolutely phenomenal. Like I told her that she needs to make a coffee table photo book of his work because it is just phenomenal. I've seen it. I've seen him sit there and take a picture of a toy car to make it look real life. And I have no idea how he did that with her cell phone. But it's these things, and helping to educate folks about autism, because everybody, you know, has a family member or a colleague that has a child that's on the spectrum, but they know nothing about it. They hear one thing and think one thing that autism is, but autism is called the spectrum for a reason, because it's so vastly different in every household. So I can truly resonate with you about 2020, making sure that you were walking in your purpose. Because it was like a no-brainer. Like, I got to do this and I got to see it through, no matter how scared I get of failure, that I know that it's not a failure unless I don't learn anything from it. So
Yeah, like I was telling some of the mothers in another meeting we have on Wednesday about a book I read by Leslie Odom Jr. Called Failing Up, and he talks about essentially failing is really a part of the process, right? Receiving no's, right? Being told no at times. That may be the universe's protection, and then sometimes you're just gonna flop. But flopping is by no means the end. And so it's really it really is a powerful thing to come to understand about your journey, is that everything you try won't necessarily work the way you plan, but that doesn't mean the journey ended. And so yeah, that's definitely true. So LaJoy, you raised your hand. You say you hit your purpose this year. Now our sister LaJoy, mother LaJoy, LJL, I say hashtag LJL, the politician. You took up the charge and took on the challenge to run in Ward 8 for State Board of Education, because you knew that we didn't have enough parent representation on our state board in the district. You knew that there was not much understanding of the need for disability education reform, and even an understanding of what parents are feeling. We've talked about everything from trauma to being bullied. Like, and so you've talked about that. And so, but you just raised your hand and said you found your purpose, in terms of where you were going. That 2020 hit it for you. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because I don't know what the mic is doing, but I just never thought that I would ever run for office. I never thought that I would just be in this position in life. Like, you all know how you have like that plan, right? It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. All right. Like, I made some like really messed up decisions, and it's like, I got to do better. Like, I got a Bria here, I just have to do better for her. I have to do better for myself. And I was like, okay, like, I'm on this track. Right. And in the advocacy space, it's so many avenues. It's so many conversations. And one thing that I just noticed, I was like, okay, where are the parents? Where are families of color? And furthermore, where are families of color that have children with disabilities? Why are we not talking about special education? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is why special education was passed, was to be included. So if you're going to talk about education, then we should be talking about special education. And then half the folks in education don't even understand special education, nor understand that I always say, like, it's a mandate, right? Like, it's a requirement and not a request. And we treat special education like it's a request. And I think I just got like really tired of it. And, I prayed on it. I was like, Lord, is this what you want me to do? And I got some like really great signs, and I was like, no, like, this is my plan. I'm supposed to be going, I just got my master's. I'm supposed to be going back to school and get my PhD. Like, I'm not supposed to be running for office. But no, there was a reason for me running. And the reason is sitting right here, right? To show parents that you can do it, and that there are people that support you, and that there are people that are behind you. And I really wanted to just to show families that it doesn't matter if you're in TCPS or charter. Like, it really doesn't matter. Parents are parents, families are families, and we're all going through it. And we shouldn't be exclusive, but inclusive. And I just was honored. Everyone says, okay, it's the movement. And I'm like, the movement? But it is, it's the family movement. And it's a shame that we have to call it the family movement, because it should always be about children first and families. You know what I'm saying? It's like we put everything else just before that. And that bothers me. And I noticed that, and I just I decided to take a chance. But there's so many amazing things that have come out of this, out of me running. Abria, what are you doing? Like, how are you gonna block? Girl, story time with Abria will be this Thursday. See, this is what we're talking about. Can you imagine being in a forum and her doing this? I remember on one forum, I was like, can we pause for a parenting moment? It's not working. You know what I'm saying? But to just show folks, like, this is like real life. You know what I'm saying? And can we just respect that? Why do I have to have a certain title for you to respect me? Respect me for being a Black mother. Let's try that. Let's try that. Ma'am, who are you? Who was your title? Mother LaJoy, who are you? Mother Law, who are you? Miss Law. Okay, respect parents. Respect parents as being experts. Respect Black parents as understanding what they need for their children. And if they don't understand, don't shame them. Educate them. Inform them. Don't, just kind of like run them over and tell folks what they need to do with their kids and make them feel like they're less than. And that's the system we live in. And I just got tired of it. And so it all came. I mean, it was just a beautiful journey. I mean, we, the motherhood, I mean, just you guys, it was just such a blessing. And I feel like my purpose, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm called to do. It's connecting people. Like that's my purpose. I'm always connecting somebody to somebody. I'm always calling on Yolanda. Like, girl, don't you want to talk to this reporter? Chioma, don't you want to talk to so-and-so? Michelle, have you met Chioma and Yolanda?
You did do that. Hey, you gotta know Chioma. You already met Yolanda on the education panel that we sat on, but you said you must know Chioma. Yeah, I needed to know Chioma. Real talk. And the premise of the whole thing, what I keep hearing, I've been hearing this for a while in my head every time we talk, is the power of the collective, right? The power of the collective. And when I spoke to you all about, hey, let's have this conversation. I talked about the work of Patricia Hill Collins under the motherhood context, right? And sort of the sense that Black and brown mothers parent in a collective fashion. And I continue to and the necessity to do that for our communities, and that it was relevant then, it is still relevant now. But our collective parenting is so unique, right? Because the stuff that we have to talk about, or what we want to complain about sometimes, real talk, it ain't really for everybody, right? It is specific. It's not a conversation that can happen in mixed company, right? Because we have a pervasive parent shaming and judgment, and everybody think that wouldn't be my son, because if my son did that, like, really, you think that it wouldn't be your son if your son did that for real? Well, it's not. So we're not even gonna have this conversation. But the reality is that we can have the conversation, right? I can, I had a mom tell me about their son being locked down in the classroom because he had, a sensory moment that, became unsafe, right? And she didn't know what to say about it. And when she told me about it, I was just like, how many chairs did he throw? Yeah, I feel you. And like, how long did that last? And, and we talked about it, and she, for the first time, nobody tried to judge her for it. Like, nobody recommended that she punish him. For the first time, somebody understood, like, yeah. So what did you do? Did you have an IEP? And, like, does he have an IEP? Have you talked about these things? And that was the first time. And she cried. I could feel it. It was the same watershed moment I had when Tiffany called me before I went into that one crate, when I realized I was up against something. That one IEP meeting I had, when I was against something. We have a question, and I want to kind of pitch this question to Chioma, because we've been talking a lot about IEP balls and different things like that, and just looking at IEPs at a holistic level across the district. And Barrett Higura Barrett. I might have got that wrong. I'm so sorry if I did, but you indicated in your comments that you are a early intervention teacher. So we know early intervention is key. Um, and it's interesting what Barrett's saying, because I thought about this, because when I think about the power of the motherhood, I think about this collective manner that, when Yolanda goes to her next IEP meeting, we all in the lobby waiting. Like, we just start showing up, squatted up, right? Squatted up. And and so she said, she asked the question, how do that she's been thinking about trying to get a lot more inclusive, and including more family members in the IEP meeting, right? Kinship, relationships. And I feel like that is an amazing idea, to get more people into the room who are a part of the execution of the plan, more people who are a part of that child's life outside of school, who could, really make the plan, the IEP, a true wraparound opportunity that doesn't just sit with the team and the parent, right? And so, the comment is, the parents feel overwhelmed, and what do the parents need to know? What she asked, and I'm gonna give this to Dr. Oru. What do parents need to know so they don't come to meetings alone? And that, she believes that the parents feel overwhelmed, confused, and eventually may even zone out and might not even know what's happening. Been there, done that. Dr. Aru, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really appreciate the one early intervention that you're talking about. I don't know if she's saying that her child is in birth to three, or she works with birth to three families, and
the teacher, Dr. Aru, she is an early intervention teacher.
She's an early intervention teacher, and she wants more parents to feel supported in the IEP, right? So I'm an early interventionist, by training and by heart and by love and by everything, right? So I think that's a very critical, I say that to say that that's a very, in my opinion, that that's a very critical time to really strengthen not just what people typically think of when they think early intervention, which is that you want to get in, you want to, give the child the most advantage at early as possible. I mean, intervention science says that, but it's also to the point of which, in terms of the child's age, the child is very young, the brain is open, lots more can happen in terms of redirecting longer term problems that may come up, especially around behavior, literacy, and da da da. But it's also a period where the parent should be in education too. There's early intervention for us at the same, like, the spirit of the law, the spirit of the IDEA was really so that parents can have a platform in order to ensure that their kids have everything they need to have successful, independent, self-determined lives, because that wasn't happening before 1975, right? Before 1975, they were institutionalizing our kids. They were not letting them in school. They did not have a trajectory for employment. And then, we were in bad shape, before 75. And things are not peachy keen right now. That came because people understood the importance of self-advocacy for those who are the advocates, and parent advocacy. Parents have been central to the disability movement day one, right? There is tension between self-advocates and parents, because not all parents are dealing with ableism, are unpacking their own bias, are supporting power, of course. So I think the earlier that we start our journey collectively, hold each other accountable, help each other grow, we know that child abuse is real, and that when it comes to kids with disabilities, unfortunately, usually it can end up in fatality quicker than a non-disabled child for a number of reasons. We're seeing that in schools. It happens in home as well. So there's so many different reasons why a family should be empowered to have the best foot and the least traumatic moment to get into your IEP meetings. I want to maybe say lastly that I think that while everything I just said, I don't want you to just throw it out the window with what I'm about to say next. While I believe very much that we need to be empowered, and that's part of the intervention that is early and preventative, there's also the reality that an IEP meeting is a very litigious environment, right? You don't just want to treat it like a party, right? You don't want to treat it like a place where you come to socialize. Key, impactful, binding, budgetary, legal decisions get made in that space. So you want to, part of empowerment is ensuring that we are as strategic as possible and as knowledgeable as possible to come into a space like that. Be responsible, especially if you're coming to support somebody else. I mean, I work as an advocate, the joy. I mean, this is the life that we live, advocates for justice and education, which is our Parent and Training Information Center. I think Parents Place is what's in Maryland, right? So every state has a PTI. There is an ethical code. Maybe it's not like taking the bar. Maybe it's not like, having some kind of licensure in order to practice. But there's a responsibility, an ethical responsibility when you're going in to support somebody else with their child's legal situation. So I think there are spaces we can create that can be empowering and interventive as well, in terms of creating natural environments, celebrating birthday parties. I mean, a lot of us don't really have birthday parties, right? So we need to actually start creating that culture, or being able to take our kids to a birthday party with other kids and they don't feel so awkward and we don't have to do so much planning. That's really important, creating that culture. But when we're talking about an IFSP meeting in terms of early childhood or IEP meeting, I want us to be much more strategic, politically minded, legally minded, and really come in there with your power hat on and strategy. So hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, go ahead. LaJoy, you had a comment you want to add right on in there?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and this is how do you say your name? She's so sweet. How do I say it? To Abria has my phone, so I can't see. I don't know. To the teacher, what's her name?
Barry.
I'm not sure.
Barry.
Barry. I'm gonna call her Miss B. Miss B. This is to you. I'm gonna call her Miss B. Come on, man. Cause I'm sure the kids probably call her Miss B too. You know what I mean? To Miss B and to everybody, I'm dropping knowledge. I'm dropping knowledge that a lot of people don't use. Please tell your families, under related services, parents, families, and guardians can receive special education / IDEA training under a related service. That is covered under the law. Parents can get training on special education. Someone mentioned in the chat rights law. And if that's, they're really, really great. I went to it. Chioma went to it. I have the book somewhere in here. It's really, really amazing. So if parents are just really struggling to just understand what's going on, and because it is overwhelming, I have an IEP meeting Monday, right? I have to finish reading a 20-page document, okay, for this child here, right? And then when you go to that meeting, they have to legally give you the procedural safeguards, which is under the law as well. And that's like 40 pages. So on Monday, I would have had to review 60 pages of documentation. That's a lot. And that's a lot to take in, and that's a lot to understand. And so
give you those procedural safeguards before. They give them to you.
So that legally they have to give them to you like every time you go to like a meeting, or even like
room for the first time. Like, you're not getting those procedural safeguards. You mentioned 40 pages, right? And the way you do it is very clear that we're talking about a state of duress, right? So they give you this procedural safeguard packet before the meeting, but it's during the meeting, right? They don't 2 days before say, here's everything, here's your procedural safeguards. Read this before you come in the room. Make sure you're very versed. The first time you walk in the IEP, they pass it over and you sign something that says you received it, not something that said you read it or know a damn thing in it, right?
Exactly. And that is why we push on contacting your parent training information centers. But under related services, parents can receive training. And a lot of those trainings, once you finish the procedural safeguards, you'll be able to roll off your tongue, right? One of them being, I'm looking at it right now. I made sure to tell the teacher, Do not send me no IEP less than 5 days before. You send me an IEP 432 days, you're going to have a problem, because that's not what the law says. You have to give me 5 business days at least, right? At least, to make sure that I can see those documents, right? But honestly, it's through reading the procedural safeguards, going to trainings, but parents can receive those, families can receive those trainings, IFSP, IEPs under related services. So please share that with your families. It's an underutilized resource. A lot of people aren't using it, and I just wanted to share to hope that would help.
Well, Joy, I want to keep going with that one, right? All right, let's put this in real time context, right? So I'm going to pre-A3, right? I don't necessarily know that my son is having challenges. I say that there hasn't been obvious. There are no speech delays. There are no physical delays. There's nothing that would give me anything, that would indicate that we may have a challenge accessing education, right? And so I don't know anything, right? So the first time I met with this is the point in which most likely my son has pissed them off to the point that they don't even want him there no more, right? So so now I'm a fighting mother, and I'm like, oh hell no, my son deserves an education. So what are we talking about here? What do we need to do here? Okay, IEP, great. Oh wait, read this, do that. How am I to actually know anything about a resource?
When they give you those documents.
But I'm pissed and I'm fired up by now.
I know, but this is what I'm trying to tell you. This is what I'm trying to tell folks on the documents, right? It's one, we're pissed because not 99, but like a good percent of the time, the schools know what's happening, but sometimes they're so overwhelmed and don't have the resources that they just would rather not go through the process. Because let's be real.
By saying they overwhelmed and don't have the resources, that's a nice thing to say.
Well, it's true though. I mean, some people need resources, and then some people just don't need to teach. Let's just be real. This will be the motherhood. We got to be real. Some people need resources.
Person. Your optimistic outlook. You're so rosy all the time.
Because it's like some people, you need support. Like, do you need my support? I think you do. I think you need some support. Number two, you just shouldn't be teaching, baby. You just need to go to a different profession. And number three, on those documents, they have to put down, if you show me, what is it like, if you need help, please contact your parent training information center. But it's like really, really small, and it's usually at the bottom. Like, I see Tiffany. It's at the bottom, and it's really small, and you're so stressed out that I remember when I got it, I didn't even know what was going on. I think I used Google, but you know what I'm saying? But it's like, if schools actually took the time to do what they were supposed to do with the federal mandated law that they were supposed to do in the first place, and actually tell parents that this is what's going on, a lot of the challenges and the issues I don't think it was completely erase it, but it would dramatically lower it. And I'm gonna pick on Yolanda because it's like, I know, and we're not going to mention her name for confidentiality, but Yolanda, I'm thinking of a mom. She's getting ring around the rosy. She's trying to figure it out. Honestly, what's going on with her child? I think I would have cussed the school out too. So like, Yolanda, like, what do we say to the mom I'm talking about? But to Miss B and to others, like, what do we say to them?
I think it's just like people take advantage in these spaces of like parents feeling like hopeless. We know it's an emotional bag that we go through when we're trying to figure out what's going on with our child. When you first find out you're going to be a mother, from that time that you get your pregnancy test and they tell you it's positive, all of these things start going through your mind of what you see for the future of your child. And if this is your first child, when you get that initial diagnosis, it's so many other things that happen. So like a floodgate of emotions that are not just associated with the initial part of just being a mother, And so it almost kind of baffles the mind when you go to these places where they're called specialists. And they're supposed to be there to help you walk through something that is a pivotal point in your life of parenting, and you are met with like this adversarial tone. And so what I tend to tell most of the parents that I find in this spaces, especially to the parent that LaJoy was mentioning, is that you have to find the power within the fight for the child that you started off with all the hopes and dreams for. Like, just because you get this diagnosis doesn't change that same desire that you have as a parent to see the outcome be that they're going to be successful and sustainable adults. And so, like, I know it's hard to say to put it aside, the judgment that you're met with, but I always think about something that I was told by a former good friend in high school. He said sometimes you got to turn that hate into fuel, and you have to let it fuel you towards getting what you need. Like, yeah, they're gonna be mad at me because I done said something, and yeah, I might not come in with all the information and everything like that at first, but as long as I'm coming in here with the heart and the intent to learn, you know, that's all that should matter. So, like, you know what you're there for, you know what the end goal is, even if nobody else in the room does. So you stick with that and you hold that fire, and then you find other people to keep you standing on that and keep you confirming that you're doing the right thing at the end of the day to make sure that your child gets what they need and they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because I got to be honest, like LaJoy, I wish that there was a way. I'm gonna put it in a nice way, nice-ish. Um, I wish there was a way that we didn't have to bump up against so many obstacles, because it was I was probably 3 years into it before I heard anything about parenting. So it never came up, because I was at work today, and someone called me and asked me a question, and they said, I didn't think the answer was right, and they told me they asked our lawyer, and I said, well, the lawyer gives you the answer to the question you ask, right? So if they ask a question in such a way that the lawyer gives them the answer, that's the answer, but it ain't the question that necessarily you're asking, right? So you find yourself as a family going through this without any idea of what questions to ask, right? Which is so frustrating. So yeah, there's all these resources available, but they don't. That's not plain. That's not plain. And I brought up the procedural safeguard because yeah, they hand it to you 1,000 times, but I guarantee you that majority of families who receive those never read them, right? I didn't start reading it real thoroughly until I started to realize I might have to go due process, right? And then I started really looking real hard at, what are my rights and what are my obligations, because I just could not believe that it was so hard. Like, I was delusional about the difficulty, and I just couldn't imagine that these people who had signed up to educate my son would make it so difficult for him to access it because he was divergent, right? And so, like, and I was say you were in a unique position because you had some sense of what Abria would need early, but a lot of us don't find out what we're going to be up against until late, and we're in the mix, and it's just a full on battle after that, and it does feel like our high functioning divergent children who they like, well, they can learn, so it's all good. I feel like they get the short end of the stick, but I see Tammy was shaking her head quite a bit. Tammy, what you think, Tammy?
I can remember when my son was, I think Jordan maybe was about 13, and we were in an IEP meeting. And I actually had an advocate with me, Dr. Shell. And around PG, she wasn't liked, I guess, by teachers because of how she presented herself in the IEP meetings. But she knew the law like the back of her hand, and she knew what our children were supposed to have. She even made Tiffany cry, poor Tiffany. But Dr. Shell is an amazing advocate. And she went in that meeting and she read those teachers up one end and down the other, to the point where one teacher stood up and got to cursing at her and told my advocate, you're not going to come in here and make these teachers cry and tell them how they should be writing the IEP. And Dr. Shell was just calm and cool. and collect them. She said, like I said, this IEP is not written correctly, and Jordan is going to get what Jordan is supposed to get by law. She said, I don't care who cries, who's upset, Jordan is going to get what Jordan deserves to get. And I, as me going to IEP meetings, even starting out, I was frustrated and upset because I didn't understand some of the goals and objectives, and they weren't written correctly. My son wasn't getting his psych evaluations the way he was supposed to get them. You know, the paraprofessionals, it was like people, they weren't trained. They were just there collecting a paycheck. I remember my son coming home with someone else's shoes on, and I'm looking like, whose shoes are those, Jordan? And the next day I go to school and I tell the teacher, well, these shoes aren't Jordan's. Ha ha ha, no wonder he kept trying to take them off, or no wonder he was walking funny. So me, I want to act like a fool and go off, but I got to act like, I can't act like the angry Black woman. I got to act like a parent and say, oh, well, no, those shoes weren't Jordans. And I would appreciate if you all take them when they go outside for recess, that you make sure that my son comes home or puts on what I actually send to school. So I can't act ignorant even though I want to, because now I'm upset because he has to go all day with his toes crumped up, walking funny and in pain. So as a parent, yeah, I was extremely frustrated, upset. My husband would see me upset or crying, trying to figure this out. And then eventually he's like, you become a fighter. It's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to get in that ring with my boxing gloves on, and I'm going to make this happen for my son because he deserves to get the education that he's supposed to get. So I definitely understand the frustration. I definitely understand parents being upset. I can relate to all that. The procedures, you're right. They do hand them to you at the meeting. Like, I'm going to sit here, which I should say when they hand them to you, well, let me sit here and look this over. Let me read this before we proceed. I mean, that's what you want to do. You're like, oh, let me see and read it since you handed it to me, because I don't really know what it says in the inside, but then you don't have all that time. Then they're kind of like trying to go over the IEP all quick and fast. And, just like what LaJoy said, give it to me 5 days before, because I want to read it from top to bottom. I even spell check. And I tell them everything. I'm like, oh, well, this word is, this is spelled incorrectly. So they know that I'm a mother who doesn't play. So they know that I'm a mother who's actually reading what you're handing me. And if I have questions, I ask. I know some people get shy, and if they don't understand something, they won't ask, and they'll let the teachers just keep reading. But I will tell parents, please, 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 if you don't understand, I don't care if you think it may be something simple. If you don't understand, please ask questions and make them explain everything in detail. Every word, if it's a big word, make them explain everything to you so you know exactly what your child is getting and what they should get.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I'm looking at a comment in oh, hey, our brother Alfredo from the West Coast has joined us. I'm looking at a comment from Kelly Blake that and Kelly, no shade, right? But it's this what you say feels so hard. She says, we need to create a positive connection from the beginning with the IEP team. Possibly, I'm ad-libbing a little bit. Possibly by writing a polite and factual letter that shows the IEP team you want to work as a real team and you care about the team relationship. And first of all, I didn't even know I had an IEP team, right? Because by the time I even found out I had a team, I was already being railroaded, right? My son was already being railroaded, boxed out, right? He was 3, and they had already moved him around. He had 4 teachers between the ages of 3 and 4. I had no idea what I had come to. Okay, he probably needs some support. Okay, what's this IEP? Let me read about it. And my main goal for IEP at that time was so they would not expel him, because they were working hard to get him out because he didn't have a diagnosis yet. Because not every autistic child walks into school with a diagnosis. That's clear. And let's not talk about how long the wait list is for you to get into the right spaces to even get the diagnosis right. So now we got a 2-year wait list to try to get us a diagnosis that's half decent and functional, right? And so I didn't even know I had an IEP team to even write a factual letter. And I couldn't write a factual letter because I didn't even know what it was and what it could entail. And then when I finally got this ridiculous form that clearly is designed for me to fail because I can't even understand it, I I couldn't, if I wanted to write a factual something, I couldn't. And the truth is that the only way I could write a factual letter is if I was a lawyer, right? Or Dr. O'Rourke. But if I was, someone who was extremely versed. So for the average parent who is walking into there for the first time, to be able to do that, and by the time you are versed enough to maybe write a factual letter, it ain't gonna be polite. And that brings me to something that I thought about today, and I wanted to bring it up as we think about 2020, because in the beginning of the distance learning, I said, ooh, I got a break from them people calling my phone and harassing me all day. And I can breathe from the trauma of all the drama. And recently it started kicking back up again. And I started to feel like I was being bullied, right? And one of the early conversations that we had was about, the angry black mother stigma, right? That when we go into the schools and we fight for our children, or if we're pissed because it's just not designed for us to win, you have to win through your tenacity. And you can win if you have enough tenacity, but not every mom can make it. And I think Brittany wrote in her comment that, I bet a lot of moms give up. They do, Brittany. They do. And but that's why we the motherhood call us. We will help you start up and get it together. But out there in Prince George's County right now, I know Yolanda, I'm gonna let you hold. I'm gonna ask Tiffany. Is there angry black mother stigma out there in Prince George's County?
Oh, for sure, for sure. So I'm gonna tell you my story about my first IEP. The first time they got me good because I didn't know what to expect. I went in there completely blind. They threw all these papers at me, started using all these terms. I was like, well, what? Okay. So the second time when I read the parental rights and all those other things, I did my homework. And when I came back in there, I took that IEP and I dissected it. 3 days before, I had started a document. I went through every last goal, every last section. I identified every last discrepancy on there, misspelled word. If she had so much of a grammatical error, it was listed on there. And so when we walked in, they were like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I said, well, I've created this document to help with the flow of everything. So I've read all you all's evaluations of my child, and I have some questions for you. I pulled out a 3-page front and back document, and we went through. I ran my IEP meeting, and my husband, and I gave my husband before he left to go to work. I said, "Look, you need to read over this when we meet up at the school." He's like, "What's this? This is homework." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is for our son, because if we don't advocate for him, nobody else will." And I can't expect the teacher to go the extra mile to educate my son the way I think he should be if I'm not willing to do the homework myself. So to any parent who doesn't know, like, I had an advocate. Tanisha was right. She was mean as hell. She did not play. She didn't even play with me as a parent. I was like, I can't be beat up too. I'm getting beat up at school. I'm going to try this myself. But I went in there with the mentality like, look, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but I'm telling you how you're going to teach my child. And I'm not accepting anything less. And what we're going to do is we're going to come to the table and work together. We can either do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. But either way, we're going to walk away where my son is going to be placed in a school that has the resources that he needs to be successful. So at the end of the day, I won that argument with the school, and then we took it to the county. And the county tried to bojangle me, and I was like, that's not going to fly. I said, because would you send your child here? I didn't think so. So, and then we got placed in a school in Virginia. But it's a fight, and it's a fight that I never had to fight so hard with all my life. And I'm usually a very jovial person, but two things you don't mess with: my family and my money. And they mess with my kids. And so I was just like, this is not going to fly. I'm sorry. And so you have to be willing to treat it as your job. Like how you prepare for a meeting at work, you go over your presentation, you have your notes, and that's what you do. And if you don't understand something, the worst thing you can do is not ask the question. It's their job to explain, to teach, and to not only teach your child, but also teach you of what these IEP terminology means. And if you have a goal that you want your child to meet yourself, have his goals in there, the things that I said. And they built in resources to basically support what I want him to do. I said, my main goal is for my child to have a sense of independence and has his own identity outside of us. And that's what we want. This is what we're building for. And so when we come in, they already know it's a 2.5 hour meeting, so we're not doing an hour. We're gonna talk everything through. And now I've got my husband into the routine where most of the time I don't have to say nothing. He's leading the conversation, because when you have representation of both parents or caregivers, I think support in volumes is heard and is felt, and they know they can't just pass the buck on anything. You hold people accountable. We have to be accountable at our job at all costs. And I feel like, that's one thing this world is missing is accountability. And, we are always held to a different standard. And always, we have to live our lives by being policed by not only our supervisor that signs our checks, but the other supervisors around us. And so I don't just take those IEPs lightly. And those who get intimidated, call one of us. We will coach you up.
Yeah. Can you expand on that? We said the other supervisors, right? Are you talking about people in the grocery store that be judging us when our kids be cutting up? Or
and you know what? It's funny. It's like I had a lady tell me that she apologized for her child acting out because he was on the spectrum. And I was like, don't ever apologize for your child. I said, you have typical children that walk around here acting worse than that. So don't ever apologize. That's your child. She's like, I was going to get a business card made to hand out to people who look at me funny to say my child is autistic. I said, don't waste your money. I said, because I'm like, no.
Yeah. I mean, the number of times, I gotta be honest, I have just left the grocery and walked out the store. And then eventually I just started to, it made me feel like the fact that I could look at another family going through it and get it, and maybe even lend a helping hand, grab something for them, or, I don't know, stand in the gap. And you can feel when it's real. Like, you kind of know when it's a real, like somebody came to rescue you, they're going to stand in the gap for you because they get it. Like, I stopped running from it, but I used to literally like run out of the store with embarrassment. Or if it was such that I had to get what I needed, I would be, I mean, the level of stress and anxiety that would come along with a grocery visit if I had to take both my kids at the same time, I would be like, woo. And if we made it out, I was like, victory. But we talk, something that came up, because you say about, you could call one of us or something like that, and we say squat up on that ass a lot. And I gotta tell you, right, like earlier today, my husband and our son's teacher, we've been having a lot of challenges, and he said, I think she want this smoke, and I said, nah, we got the motherhood. She do not want this smoke, not now. Like, last year they could comfort me, but today, no, you don't want this smoke, right? Because it's 7 of us right now, right? But it's like the army is so big. We got our brother from California, like it's huge at this point, right? And so he was like, I think she wants to smoke. Nah, she don't want the smoke. She do not want the smoke. And I feel, but it is what it is, but I am tired of that stigma, right? Yolanda, I know we talked about this a lot. We talked about how traumatic that is, the emotional stress that goes along with always being judged in that way. And then Brian, I want Yolanda to share on that subject. And then Brian, I'm curious to know if your family if you've ever heard your children speak about feeling that way as well. So Yolanda, and then Brian, if you have a comment.
So when she said angry Black woman, it took me back to the space, as these conversations always do for like many of us, where you kind of relive your own journey. Again, I think out of the 4 of us, as we the motherhood, my son is 14, so he's the oldest. And I think back, it's 2 different experiences when you talk about dealing with this. You deal with your own people, and we deal with our own judgment and accountability, where we feel like either you can pray it away, shake it away, or or it's bad parenting on your part, so you got to deal with the judgment. And judgment from your own people, you kind of prepared for. Judgment from the others is something you got to become a master at. How to like navigate that space. And I had my first lesson because I felt like my son's needs weren't being met in my own community. And that's a struggle that we work to change, a narrative we should work to change daily. But it's just not there yet for me. And so I decided that I was going to take him across the river, which means across the river means for me, I got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get my son prepped and ready, along with my other two sons as a single mother. Get everybody together, put them in the car, or at that time I didn't have a car, I was in Lyft, and get everybody to the other side of town by 6 when school doesn't open up until 7:30. That's a big hump. And so I dealt with just like the difference of you not understanding us culturally, and how we are raised to like upbring our children when we're dealing with these things. There was no empathy on that part. But all that aside, I just think about when so I had an incident where this nice Caucasian woman who felt like that she was doing her due diligence decided that she had some issues with the way that I was raising my son. Listen, I've learned better through some parenting classes that perhaps, spanking kids is not the first answer. And but it was what it was, because here you are, you telling a parent who is stressed and really doesn't know how to go about disciplining a child that is falling out in the middle of the class, and you almost as big as your dedicated aide, and they literally got to pick you up and kind of drag you out of class, and you're like, what is happening here? And so she chose to take that as a moment to call child and family services on me. Trauma, number one. I never had to deal with child and family services. And also, in between her calling child and family services, I had been unemployed for almost 3 to 4 years, and I had just got employed with a nonprofit where the very first question was, have you ever had any dealings with child and family services? um, and so like now you thinking that you're doing something that's like helpful to the family and the child is detrimental to our livelihood when it all could have just been a conversation. And so, trying to knowing that when you come into these situations where it's a cultural difference, the assumption is that you're coming in as being aggressive as the Black woman, and they take it as aggression because we're very assertive as women, because we have to be. And so, I just found it really funny that what she probably would have expected from me, I got from her. She sat back in her chair, she gave me the neck roll, told me what she wasn't going to do. And I said, this has got to be a trick. Y'all ever seen that show called Bait Car, where they set the car up and people, I felt like I was on that. I had a split personality moment. My professional person, my professional representation showed up and said, thank you so much. I think we're going to have to conclude this meeting. We're going to get back and follow up. But my hood, that person she was trying to invoke to make her feel better about how she had just got me, said, Mayday, Mayday, time to leave. Gotta go. The police get ready to get called. Abort, abort. So I just think that in this 2020, if I had a message, since we're doing the review, for my Caucasian and other brothers and sisters that are in this work, if you just want to educate yourself a little more about how to deal with us, just a little more empathy and love, because you never know who you're going to meet in 2021. It's a different time. We done been through a lot of things. And the last thing I want to be met with is your judgment. I want to be met with your help and your empathy, but your judgment, you might want to check it, because I can't make no guarantees for 2021, boy, I tell you. Trauma is a real thing.
Is
my
over.
personal message from Yolanda Corbett.
Yes, Chioma just made a comment reminding me about, like when you step outside yourself, right? Like when you try your best to maintain your professionalism, and then you it just breaks and it just comes out. But there is no apology required for that. You don't owe no one no apologies for being human, for being a mother who cares, and for respondents being pushed to the limits of your sanity in the room, through a system that, sometimes can appear as if they blatantly don't care about your child. And it's perplexing to me, because they, paid for college and stuff to do this work, and took those tests that are quite brutal and signed up for the job, right? And this is servant work, like true servant work, because it's not a high paying position. It's hard. it's it's there's a lot of changes, and there's a lot of things you have to deal with, and to see them look at our children as less than is and Chioma reminded me when we did some of our storytelling in our other team about colonial lies, the education system being based on a colonial platform. And so I started to think a lot about, well, training box our children out is in the undercurrent of how they're taught that they're supposed to educate, is in the undercurrent. So Brian, have you ever heard your grandson's mom say anything about being treated in a way like she had a angry black mom stigma, or has it been all roses and frankincense for her?
Well, before I address that, I just want to say I'm almost in tears because I'm just so proud of you all for your resiliency. Um, and this is what keeps. I'm going to go there. This is what keeps the Black family together. Is you women and the effort that you give. So I'm just so thankful to be here. Now, as far as my son Jalil and his wife Marsal, she is from Afghanistan, and she just works so incredibly hard, and so does my son, to give him the very, very best. All I all we do is we sit and we talk about him. It's no us. It's all about Omar and what's best for him. We were having a discussion. She was saying that she wanted to move out of the area that she's in now because the education is not up to her standards. And I'm just so incredibly, proud of her. Now, as far as showing out, he's 4, and he's so adorable that even when he so-called shows out, I don't know if they experience anything, but everybody just, it's not at that stage yet where I think that someone would question that. And even if they did, my son and my daughter-in-law, they just show so much love to him. They will know that he's being well taken care of. Um, so I don't know if they've experienced a lot of fight back again because he's
You
so
know,
young.
uh, it's cute to be 60 tall, 200 pounds, and my son is not quite 6 feet yet. Yolanda, he's only 8. I think he's probably gonna get there. He's almost my height, um, and he speaks in dissertation patterns and such like that. Um, and I think, he's got these cute little eyelashes, and people used to, just fawn over him. And then, he started hurling water bottles across the classroom because he couldn't deal with the lighting, or, something set him off, and he had a sensory response, and he's got fight or flight responses in those cases. And it mostly comes out as fight, especially because they love to back him in the corner. They love to box him in. They never give him room. And then whatever's in front of him starts to going across the room. And so he doesn't have that yet, but we talk about that. We talked about that as we talked about the need to defund the police, and the protection of our sons, specifically because they do have size, and they are black, and they could be in crisis in public. They could be boxed into a fight or flight situation that turns out to be fight because they've boxed them away from being able to flight. My son will elope long before he throws something. He'll just go, and I just let him go, right? But but the school won't, because it's safe. It's unsafe and things like that. But it continues to concern me. So I appreciate. It's good to hear that so far the journey is positive, and I do love the way that you say you're loving them through, because it's good to hear that not everyone is experiencing it the way that we have. Unfortunately, Brian, when we have these conversations, any number of mothers can join on and will tell you that it has been less than ideal, and emotionally draining. And Alfredo, he mentioned that that's the power of a group like this, is to be able to have a network. And this is why we keep doing this. And this is why we keep having this conversation. And in 2021, we hope to expand to have more conversations outside of the broadcast so that we can continue to provide support through storytelling. And so it's really amazing to be here. So 2021. Now that I say that, right, I got plans for 2021. What is 2021? We have some newly elected officials. I know in DC we've been making our demands known to the elected officials and those coming in. We've also been building relationships with other local politicians who were aligned with our interests, like Dr. Robbie Perry and friends out here. And so we want to what 2021 in Prince George's County, you guys got a powerhouse of Black women leading the way. But what about education? I mean, I hear a lot of things. I don't know. I've never lived in Prince George's, but I hear different things on the news. What about education in this new administration in Prince George's County?
Well, I have to say I haven't done much research. I've been in the thick of it with distant learning. So, but one thing I would love to see is that they start looking at their special needs program and earmarking some real money to really develop that. I know for a fact that Ralph has been through 2 schools before I have him placed in a school in Virginia. But what baffles me is that we pay so much money in taxes that why couldn't we have the same type of facilities that are private within Prince George's County? They're closing all these schools and shuffling all these kids around, but then there's only one part of the state that's actually benefiting from all this money moving around and all those other things. I know that they're looking at doing more things like beefing up, like the technology and stuff like that. But they really need to take a focus on the special needs community. I feel like it's lacking. It's so sad that, when you look at programs, when they start to get older, like high school programs and things like that, if they're not placed in private schools, then they're put in these other schools that have smaller special needs programs. But it's not the self-contained rooms. It's not geared towards autism. They're just lumping special needs all together, whether it's a physical disability or an intellectual one. And that's not fair to the teacher. It's not fair to the students. I mean, it needs to be more defined. The autism programs, I feel like we could do better. These are areas that need to be taken into account. Everybody wants to send our kids back first because they feel like they need to be in school and things like that. But there are other ways that we can, work to develop more programs that really are geared towards the autism community. And also, I would love to see the police really take a stab at looking at providing some real training to officers about special needs, autism, and any other type of neurodiversity type difference with people that they engage with. Because I feel like, as our kids are only like maybe 10, 12, 15, they go from cute to being a threat. And then they don't even distinguish what the threat is, or they just hear that, somebody's being aggressive and it can take a U-turn so quickly. And that's one of my biggest fears about my son. Like, I have 4 nephews, I have a stepson, and I have my son. And every time they leave the door, that's one of the biggest fears as a parent. You worry about, like, will my children be back home? Or will someone falsely accuse them of something and I'm not there to defend them? Those types of things. So I would love to see Prince George's County really take a look at educating their officers and maybe putting a task force embedded within their task force and address those types of things.
And I have to agree with Tiffany with the education. My son also goes to a private school. He goes to the Harbor School in Annapolis because the schools in Prince George's County, they weren't teaching Jordan. They basically, in my opinion, they were just passing him along. And when it got up to the point where he was going to go to like a junior high school, they wanted to put him into a community-based environment where they had children with all different types of disabilities. They were on, just all different types of levels, but they were going to put them all together, basically like a babysitting service. So we fought that and we got Jordan sent to a private school. But they do need to put more money in education and have better programs for children with disabilities. And another thing, and not just with PG, but with Maryland as a whole, the autism waiver list. To me, it's a shame that it took my son 8 years to get on the autism waiver. And to me, that program really helped my son. He gets a caregiver, which is 25 hours a week. We get respite. We get adult life planning, we get counseling, and I think that would help a lot of parents. If their kids were able to get on that program, but because the waiting list is so long, it's almost impossible. And then by the time your child gets on it, they're on it like 5 or 6 years when they get off. So I would love to see that waiting list opened up to allow more kids to be on the autism waiver. That's just my 2 cents.
Like, why is there a limit?
Michelle, they never really expressed to me. I don't know if they expressed to Tiffany, because I know Ralph is on the list now. They didn't tell us why it was a limit. And it could be funding, and maybe that's what maybe they're talking about funding, because they do have to pay for these organizations and these for the respite, for the hours, for the caregivers coming out to support your son or your daughter or whatever. So I think it may be financial, but they didn't give me like a real reason of why there's such a waiting list. But it's a huge waiting list, and like I said, years. But this would help so many families if they opened it up and more kids were allowed to be on this list, on this autism waiver. And then my son, he got Medicaid, even though he was still on my insurance. On the autism waiver, you automatically get Medicaid. And I just think that would help parents out tremendously if they open this wait list up. Once they turn 21, they come off. And then when they come off, that opens up a spot. But it's still, in my opinion, not enough spots for our children.
Joe, did you want to jump in on that piece right there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, the Medicaid question, because when we talk about waiver, we're talking about Medicaid, and Medicaid it's a complex situation. For those that are in Washington, D.C., like, we have one of the easiest Medicaid programs to get into. The challenge is, though, meeting eligibility, which, is unfortunately a separate but related problem, right? Like, once you're in network, I mean, Medicaid is Medicaid, especially as it relates to disabilities, but all Medicaid, truly, any eligible child for Medicaid, they're beholden to this guideline called EPSDT, right? Early periodic diagnosis, treatment, screening and treatment. So EPSDT really sets a guideline of when you're supposed to be getting services. So I think the state of Maryland possibly gets away with this long waiting list because, one, they've set criteria, right? Like, each state gets to set its criteria, kind of like education is a state's rights. In terms of healthcare, each state determines its Medicaid formula. In DC, which I know better, because that's the system in which my kids are navigating, we have 4 MCOs, managed care organization. Every one of them is beholden to the autism waiver, right? So that means you have more options to get into the autism waiver. And then for kids with significant needs, they meet eligibility for health services for children with special needs. That's, again, our long-term care waiver, which is related to the autism waiver. But we have so much work to do around autism care. Maryland has better providers. Maryland incentivizes its providers better than DC does. So while we may have, an easier time getting into a service treatment plan, we're not really able to, implementation is a whole nother kind of question. So there, you pick your beast. Virginia's got its own set of problems. A lot of things are privatized. You got to match it with private insurance a lot more often than not in Virginia. and I've, I was looking to move out, like some people, as I think Brian mentioned, your daughter-in-law was like looking anywhere else in the country. I'm telling you, like, unfortunately, especially if you're Black, like, it really doesn't matter where you go in the country. Like, it's gonna be a struggle. Like, I've looked at Wisconsin. I actually did a fellowship out there. We had a sister from Wisconsin that was on here. They have one of the best systems in the country, supposedly, but it's real struggle to navigate, especially when you intersect it with racism. California has, a good system. Arizona, you're going to find, especially as Black people navigating the disability system, that there are traps in it, right? If it's not eligibility, it becomes the income barrier. And so not every state implements Katie Beckett, which is probably what I think you're talking about, Tanisha, like, where it's not about your income, it's really about your level of need, right? Like, to prove that, dependent on the state, can be harder than not. So then you may be able to get something, but then you got to go through, get a lawyer, do X, Y, and Z, just in order to be able to prove that. I'm currently studying Medicaid, honestly, because that's something that's becoming more real in my life the older and older my kids get. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, we really should actually, I would love for us to have a show that really just kind of goes down the rabbit hole for long-term care. Because again, when your kid turns 26 and say they still need support, what's that going to look like? Right? Like, and autism lifespan is really short. So just, about to say all of that.
Yeah. Thank you. Every time you share that knowledge, I just always feel so empowered in a new kind of way. I think that there's a lot, those are the pieces of training that you just can't get. It takes so long for you to come to a point where you really know these things about the Medicaid and about, if you make a decent wage, you may feel like you don't have eligibility, but you may. And so there's so many different things that you need to come to learn, and it takes such a long time. And it's so unfortunate how long waiting lists are to get into places where you can start to come to understand and be supported. But the motherhood has arrived. The cavalry is here. You got questions, we got answers. Brittany asked a question. I want to go to it real quick, and then I want to pivot as we get to a close. And folks, top two, priorities as advocates in 2021. So I think Brittany asked about the IEP. When we were talking about the IEPs, I had the question and I lost it. When we talk about the IEPs and we talked about, some of the struggles we had with IEP meetings and knowing what an IEP is when you walk in the door. And Brittany asked, what happens when a teacher doesn't follow an IEP? And what's interesting about that question is that we did have some some teachers tell us that sometimes they don't even know, they just get the IEPs especially in gen ed, right? In the Southern state, it's a little bit easier to assume teacher has read the IEP. But in the gen ed classroom, we've had some teachers confess that they don't really read the IEPs because they're so, I don't know, broad brush. And in the gen ed class, if the kid is not, necessarily, if it works like that, sometimes you may have a great synergy between a teacher and a student. So this 1 year, the IEP becomes almost unnecessary to follow because it's working so well. But excuse me. So what about that? If can a teacher just not follow the IEP? Go ahead, DeJoy.
So, first of all, second of all, third of all, and fifth of all, yes, I skipped 4 because we just gonna go straight to 5. Yes, you have to follow the IEP. Y'all, okay, we're gonna go here really quick. This is Abria's IEP. This meeting is on Monday. This is page 1. Now let's see how many pages this is. Real quick, we're gonna go there today. 19 pages. Okay, the school has to follow this. It's a requirement. It's not a request. If you do not want to follow the IEP, then you should not receive our tax dollars. You should not be a publicly funded school. And this is for public schools, and this is for publicly funded charter schools. If you do not, this is a binding federal document. And if you don't want to follow it, then you should not have a school. If you don't want to follow it, then you shouldn't be in the classroom. And if it's too much for you to say, have enough courage and bravery to say, you know what, this isn't for me. Lord, where do you need me? Instead of inflicting that trauma on family after family. So if the teacher is not following the IEP, and technically it's the teacher, right? But it's on the LEA, so the local education agency. So the school under federal law has to follow the IEP. So what happens when they don't? Well, parents have options. You can go through the dispute resolution process, right? But the first step is to call an IEP meeting and bring out the IEP, okay, and go through it. And guess what? If I have to sit here and go through it as the general education teacher, you know what? You need to sit up here and go through it. Because if you don't want to sit up here and go through the IEP, then baby, I need your salary, boo. I ain't stutter. Go ahead, Mr. Brian. I see you.
I know that's right. Thank you for saying that. You know, me and my wife, we tried to support Jalil and Marsal, as well as all of our kids, with everything we have. I have a question for the panel. Are there any local or national programs that help in the way of help the parents as far as not only financially, but like with stress? How do you, is that something that you, as a family, you come together with?
You know, I mean, I will defer to Chioma because she just knows a lot of this stuff, but I don't think so. My medical provider, she asked me questions about my stress levels as it relates to managing my household right now, especially with with all of us trying to get stuff done during the day from home. And she talks to me about it, but it is, but I do not believe, I have yet to find, and this is part of our whole charge here in our group as We the Motherhood. You know, I have yet to find a source of respite in that context for families where you would actually be able to, as a mother, go in, or a father, no shade, dads, but to go in and find some help, some mental health support specific to navigating the challenges that come along with with having a student, a child that has some sort of special need, because there is an emotional component from the beginning when you start to realize that your child is going to need some support, and that there may not be soccer games and some of the things that you anticipated, that you have to do something different, that you have to study, learn. I've always said that there's a stages of grief situation that occurs where you really have to come to a point of acceptance and overcoming and pushing through. But I can't think of one mom who didn't say that at the point of diagnosis, they ask questions. Was it me? Did I have too many glasses of wine in my first couple of weeks before I found out I was pregnant? Could I have done this? Did I do that? I was 40, Ryan, when I had my son. Was I too old? Did I not take the prenatal vitamins correctly? I mean, like a million and one questions, right? My son sucks his thumb. Should I took that thumb out his mouth? Did I miss a sign? I can't look at a baby picture right now without saying, gosh, was it something? Because I can see it now, but I just didn't know what I was looking at then. But I don't think so. I want to ask Tiffany and Chioma, are you guys aware of any programs that specifically support families in our specific subset?
Yeah, so I'll answer from the basis in which I operate and function, which is political action, right? Like, I think I know what I do know for sure is that in the District of Columbia, we're in the middle of like really a very low key movement around school behavioral health. And it's increasing. I feel very proud of my contributions to this effort. We have a school behavioral health coordinating council. I chair the family and youth committee. The whole point of this avenue of the work is to ensure that while they're building this whole system of a school behavioral health expansion, which is based on RTI, and I know like for special ed families that can also be triggering because we know RTI has been misused in terms of child find and identifying, but it can really be a progressive system when done right. So in DC, we have the multi-tiered systems of support where you have tier 1, where everyone gets universal supports that should and must include families. That's what we're trying to do in the Family and Youth Committee to ensure that at each tier, there is consideration, not just to the student, but to the child. So when I say like we're family centered, my company, all I ever say is family centered. That means so many things, but family to be centered is in the same kind of spirit as we were saying if we're African centered. It's what you put in the middle and where you start to broker power, right? Like if you put the child in the center and you don't put the institution, the first institution, the family around that child, you're either going to organize that child away from its core or you're going to destroy that entity, right? And we've seen more destruction coming out of the education system to the household, to the family. Families have not had respect. We're making this case in the public domain right now. I'm saying this because there is a call to action and that we really coming into 2021. My personal promise and my personal mission is to really use that leverage of really having committed myself to understanding, giving blood, sweat, and tears to really, really participating in building this system and taking it to the next level means that parents really have to start knowing all that's been done and how we can really demand for the supports that we require. Like everything that was just said, like where is that mental health support and who is to provide it, right? And not just to the student, because that's what happens when you build a school system, right? There's community that should be surrounding the school. There's family that's in the school. And I think this is unfortunately not something that's already fully built. And I hope, I'll say lastly that I hope that in the spirit of creating these things, we're using the practices we want to infuse in our kids, which is we want our kids to practice wellness and to be able to, de-escalate quickly and to be able to be, socially, emotionally competent and emotionally intelligent. Well, the system has to be that first. The system has to be responsive like that first. The system has to pipe down when it feels it's attacked. I mean, all of that is true. Even in how we get to these places where we want to provide therapy for people, knowing that there's a lot of politics to all of that too. And so that's unfortunately like my only real answer to this question.
And
how do you follow up after that?
It's hard, Tiffany.
I mean,
it's hard.
It is. To be honest with you, I have to say Ralph goes to school in Virginia, and I had never seen a program as built as solid as they have for his school. He goes to Phillips, and he has at his IEP meeting we have a counselor, we have a behavioral specialist, we have an occupational therapist, we have a speech therapist. And all those people are all included in his team. And then there's people outside of that don't get to come, but they still interact with him. There's like 13 people on his team. But one thing that they have also done is that during distant learning, they have started to offer webinars for parents. It's training on how to deal with your children's behavioral issues, just providing a forum where parents just get on and talk through like the problems that they've had. Or experiencing, and just having that dialogue like we have tonight. And I feel like there are probably a lot of organizations in Maryland that do these types of things on a certain level, but everything is kind of stovepipe. Like if you don't hear about it from word of mouth, sometimes you just don't know. And a reason why I started my organization is to be a platform that kind of helps put it out for all people. Like for me to be successful is to tell somebody about somebody else's thing so they can go out and check that out for themselves, and to tell my experience to somebody else to get them to check out this professional who offers services like with speech therapy or occupational therapy. I feel like we don't share enough. Everybody is so stovepipe and coding information so close. And somebody asked me a question about where do you see your organization going? I said, you know what? I said, you look in the sky, there are billions of stars. And you know what? There's room for every last one of them. And I feel like we all together collectively, we all can take our own entities and be successful with it. And building a foundation that targets mental health, not just for the child, but for the parent as well. Because we go through a lot. There are times when you get home from work on that long commute home, you have to sit in your car for a good 20 minutes just to decompress, leave all the stuff that got on your nerves at work and the crazy folk, and then just get your mind right, because you know when you hit that door, you on. If this is your second job, this is actually your real job. Your other job just finances the life you have at home. So it's just like building these types of foundations and support systems through with you guys and other programs and services and things like that. It's just you have to be able to step out of your comfort zone, and instead of keeping a closed mouth about your family and things you go through, and being willing to talk about it. Just because you talk about your issues, you're not putting your business out in the street. Your story may help somebody else, or it may be something that, hey, I heard about your story and I wanted to share this information with you. Maybe that could help, type deal. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know everything. I'm just starting out, but I am a sponge, and wherever I can learn and absorb things, I want to share it with others. So,
Thank you. You want to learn some things? Call Dr. Oru down there. I had the pleasure of training after all of our initial meetings. I had the pleasure of training under Chioma, and I would say, "How you feel?" She always check in with you, see how you feel. She said, "How you feel right now after this?" I was like, "Fired up." I feel fired up. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out there. And so yeah, that collective learning and sharing is powerful, and coming together in opportunities like this. So as we go to a close, Tiffany, I heard you talk about what you're going to be doing in 2021. Chioma, I heard you talk about what you're going to be committed to in 2021. Yolanda, last words. What are you committed to in 2021?
I just like to bring up that my son, my 6-year-old, stepped in and added a little Christmas joy to our platform. You're welcome.
We love it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We love
it. I personally, I like to support my sisters that come with the heat, with the legalities of things. But my specialty in this Avengers team is to get out and beat the streets and talk to the people that need it the most, to be empowered, to meet us where we already are. So I make a commitment to go out here in my own community and past my community to help empower people to meet us and not suffer in silence. Like if my child can only be as better as the child next to him. And so if I don't carry that spirit and share that spirit, then all the work that I do, all the sleepless nights that I have, all the tears that I cried are for nothing. And also I'm on a campaign of accountability. We got some new leadership going on in DC, and I'm here to hold feet to fire. I got time, And so before 2021 hit up, after this nice and lovely broadcast of We the Motherhood, the end of 2020, like, share, and describe. Y'all see this? In real time. That's how he almost got it shut down last time. Like, share, and subscribe. Catch us on our website. Make sure you share the information. We don't do it for the likes. I don't know what the likes do, but I know what the share do. A share will make sure that another parent that needs to hear these stories and be empowered and meet us where we are makes it happen. And until then, y'all, I'm out of here. Please. I want to get your emails, and I would like to get your text messages, but 2020 needs to be held in silence. All these advocates out here, please, self-care is the best care. We want to care for our community, but we can't keep doing it if we keep pressing ourselves to the limits. And so I always tell my people, my sisters included here, take time for yourself. You can't save the world if you don't save yourself. The airplane tells us that you got to put your mask on first. So I'm putting my mask on for 2020 so I can be ready to fight in 2021. So
I forgot to ask the other mothers this, but Yolanda, how can we find you on Twitter?
You know, you can find my representative at Yolanda Corbett 5 on Twitter. You know, disclaimer, all the tweets are my own. I'm associated with several other organizations, so please don't catch that beef to them. It's for me only. You can also catch me on my Instagram at Just the Thought with Yogi G. That's a whole different kind of vibe, so don't come with your judgment. And then other than that, you can find me on We the Motherhood with the rest of my sisters.
Yay! Tiffany, can we find you on Twitter?
I'm not a Twitter. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
As at Raising Ralph, what is your? How can people find you on Instagram?
So we're at Raising Ralph, and on Facebook, Raising Ralph also, and our website is www.raisingralph.org.
Chioma, how can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me tag Chi Born Free. Chi is in CHI. It's not Kai, it's Chi, as in Chioma. Chi Born Free, because we are born free.
I always love Chi Born Free. That title just resonates with me. Tammy, last words. What's up with you for 2021, and how can we find you on Twitter?
On Twitter, I am, I'm just at Tranisha, on Instagram, Tranisha, and on Facebook, Tranisha. I think it's all the same. Made it very easy. So for 2021, I'm going to be celebrating because Jordan graduates out of high school. So that's what I'm looking forward to. His senior pictures, his class ring. I don't know if they're going to do a senior trip or prom, but we'll see. But I'm excited that he's getting out of school. And now I guess we're going to go transition to adulthood and see where that leads us. And I'll just keep you ladies informed.
We're going to be in your corner, Mama. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. LJ, what's up with you for 2021, and how can we find you on Twitter?
Yes, but you guys, we made it. We the Motherhood. We made it. Not only did we land, we touched so many lives, right? Like we touched so many different people because we didn't realize how many people needed us. And I just want to just give a really quick shout out to Michelle, who had this amazing idea to start We the Motherhood. So can we all just give her a big round of applause? This was her idea. She called me. It was a random day. She was like, do you know some moms? I'm trying to do this. And I was like, oh, I'm going to call you London Chioma. And that's like literally how it started. So it's just a beautiful journey to see all of us come together. You know, it's like we get to do what we love with like our three best friends. You know what I'm saying? Because we never, when one of us is down, it's like, all right, you need me to go to a meeting? I'm there. You're running for office? Okay, like, where do you need me? You need a mental health day? Okay, like, where do you need me? And so it's just a blessing to be on this journey with you all. I can't wait to see what we the Motherhood does in 2021. Let's see, what's up with me in 2021? I think we have to keep doing the work. The work doesn't stop because it's a new year, right? We just have to continue to do the work. Excited because Abria will be 10 years old. Like I'll have a kid who's like a decade. Like, oh my God, like what happened? I'm just excited. I'm just excited. You know, I may go back to school. Who knows? Y'all just keep me and Abria in your prayers. Some days she drives me nuts. Some days she's my angel. It's like, pick one, kid. She's like, no. So y'all just pray for me and pray for Miss Abria. But you guys can find me at, literally, I'm not as snazzy as everybody else. Tammy, I'm with you, you know, at LaJoy, LAJOY, JLaw, JLAW. All right, maybe I should change it to Miss Law. That sounds cooler. That sounds cooler.
The LJL soon. So
that is we're not even gonna say that's a possibility. That's a done deal. So I'm just saying when I come, respect.
Yeah, no doubt. We here for you. What about you, Brother Brian? Thank you again for sharing your poem. And just wondering, if you have any thoughts on, are you going to be doing any advocacy in 2021 in the disability community, or and are you going to be lovely poetry for your grandson?
Absolutely. You had posed a question about 2020. Well, this year I won an award from the United Nations for my poetry, also a National Poetry Month award. I have a chapbook coming out in early 2021 and currently talking to other publishers as well. And So, yeah, I've always been an advocate for child welfare, also for hunger. And you can find that information at briandonaldjames.com. I'm involved with many different organizations that fight hunger, and as well as child advocacy. So that's what I'll be doing.
That's what's up. Thank you so much, Brian, again for joining us and sharing your poem. For me, I'm just gonna be down with y'all. I'm just gonna get in where I fit in with what y'all doing. I have my Fighting Mothers series. We did our first Nutrition for Fighting Mothers series this last weekend. And I plan to, use the Fighting Mothers platform as a way to build that component in that we need for our nutrition, our spiritual welfare, our physical welfare, specifically for our work as mother advocates, because it's a unique kind of thing. And we need to acknowledge that the reality is that we're not going to slow down. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to be writing testimonies and sitting waiting for somebody to call us, after 3 hours of council hearings to let us know that it's our turn. We're going to do it. And we're going to do it every day. We are going to burn the candle at both ends because that's just who we are. So the work that, I'm personally taking on will be in that vein to really try to provide those base supports for our fight, specifically our fight, mother advocates who are going to do that work. And while we all acknowledge that our children may not see the benefit of this work, it is amazing to be connected to women who have selflessly dedicated themselves to this fight to protect their own children, to protect other children, to collectively mother, and to support one another and to be there. And it's truly a blessing. You can find me on Twitter because Chioma told me that's where the action happens. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm having a good time right now. I'm currently can't get off of Dionne Warwick's page. If you have not been following Dionne Warwick on Twitter, that's some good Friday night action right now. You will find yourself laughing in such a way. So I'm on Twitter at Miss Parrish Speaks. And it's all my own tweets, and it's where I'm at in my own, sense of advocacy. But it is a pleasure and a joy to be connected. And we got 3 minutes. Anybody else got something to say? Now 3 minutes.
Ooh, I got one.
We got to do it right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
So
Oh no, we always end out with "Be the Motherhood." We always be so at the end. Real quick, at the end, we all got to be like this. Brian, you don't have to do that. It's okay. You can put your fist up in the air. But at the end of this, we are the motherhood. Okay, go ahead, Tiffany.
Okay.
So really quick, Raising Ralph is hosting their first event on January 12th. We're kicking it off doing a financial literacy event. We're partnering with Edward Jones, and it's to talk about investing and succession planning and estate planning for your child. We're not going to live forever, but I want to make sure that my child is set up. So I wanted to kick it off when you're developing your vision boards, you always want to save some coins. So it was telling us how to invest those coins that we saved in 2020 because we didn't go anywhere. So the information is on Facebook. I am going to upload it to our site. You can go ahead and register right now. So I just want to plug that real quick. I'm sorry, back to you, LaJoy.
Well, no, that's something real quick, right? I just want to say, just because another thing that I do that's not really related to many things that we do is that I lost my dad to COVID this year. And I've also lost a cousin. We just buried him yesterday. I know that I'm part of COVID Families, which is a network at a Center for Popular Democracy. I just want to say to people who may be listening and going through a hard time, Like it's true for every year. Like there's always somebody that's missing at the table, but this year it's just the critical mass. For the holidays, whether you're Christian or not, like you feel it because the energy is just where it's at. I just want to send a lot of love and compassion to anyone that's going through loss. You are not alone. I wish we, had ability to put up resources, but that's again my commitment in 2021 is developing those networks community wise, and just really wanted to quickly just say that, like I feel like somebody needed to hear it. So saying it.
You're right. I think you're absolutely right, and it is important to acknowledge that while 2020 has been wildly successful, but it has come with so much loss and grief in addition. And so to take this moment here to as we do wind down for the year, and we want to reflect. I know when you said you're already in the mode of reflection already. And we it is important to to pay some homage to those who've lost this year, to this current situation that just isn't letting up anytime soon. So, thank you for reminding us about that, Giona. So we do send love to all of our families out there, who are going to be having a bit of a different winter season right now. And that we're here to support, any family that is going to need some added resources or support, or we've been making a list. DM us, give us a call, go to the website, leave a note, something, find us. We'll help you as much as we possibly can. And with that said, everybody come off mute. Thank you to our sisters in Prince George's County from Raising House, our girl Tiffany Thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you, Brian. So with that said, and I want to say this, we're doing what other stuff that we did, but Joy, you going to
Okay, all right. Everybody put your hands out real quick. Put your hands out. Mr. Brian, put your fist in the air. Yes, all right. Everybody. On the motherhood. You ain't got nothing on the
Ed for allowing us to broadcast live from Citizen Ed. We look forward to more broadcasts with Citizen Ed in 2021. And with that said, we out.